right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to continue with our elevations for our house. And in the previous videos, we talked about setting up the exterior walls, doors and windows. And in the last video, we talked about adding the roof. Today, we're going to talk about using hatch, which should be a review, and then how to arrange the 4 elevations on a print. So let's get rolling. At the end of your first, at the end of your elevation creations, you should roughly have 4 elevations arranged around your house looking approximately like this. And I will have asked you to print a arrangement of views that looks something like this. We're going to continue to leave the house in this arrangement. Or if you are feeling like moving them already, we can make a copy and paste a set over here just for reference, okay? Again, until we're done, you can certainly leave them in your 4 arrangement of views, or eventually we will be taking these 4 elevations and arranging them into a square pattern. So pros and cons to either of the two. And while I'm talking here, I'm just going to do a quick movement of some of these views. Okay. First concept is that if we do not pre-rotate these, it will be very important to pay attention to the orientation of our views. Okay. If we decide that we want to rotate these, and again, I'm going to start here with the front elevation. I then am going to go either, and it's entirely up to you, either counterclockwise around the house or clockwise. And it's important we do that because we effectively want to have the 2 tall view or the longer views aligned with one another vertically, and then a similar situation with the short views. So I'm going to continue with this particular view, and you'll see I did a little line here, and that's so I can help align these views. So let's continue doing that. So I'm just moving using common points as a reference. Oh, and you know what? Let's just do a copy of that from that point to there. And then I will bring this view from that top edge there. Yeah, top edge there. Assuming I got the correct point. And we should now have 4 aligned views, okay? So eventually, depending on how you want to work, we can either work with the views prearranged like so, or you can work with the views still arranged around your house, okay? Your floor plan. Either of the 2 is perfectly acceptable. I'm going to show you why this is important now as we put in some hatch. So in this particular file, I don't currently seem to have a view for hatch in general, but what I do have is 2 views that are already on here, and I just call one of them for the shingles. It could be like whatever the wall finish is. It could be bricks. For our purposes, with the thickness of the walls that we drew in our floor plan, these only being 6 inches, this house is not technically set up for brick on the outside walls. Okay, so we have I have a siding layer and I have a shingles layer. So let's start with the roof real quick, just because that's the one that I just selected. So if you decide to work in the 4 view arrangement like you see here, then there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to pay attention to the orientation of our hatch. So if I come up here and I get our hatch command, and I go looking, let's AR, I'm looking for something that looks like shingles. In this case, there's there's a roof shake, which is more of like a wood shingle. You could use something like that. So let's go ahead and grab that, and we'll bring that down here. You can see it's already kind of populating that location. I'm going to go ahead and left click to place that one. And then I'm going to play with the scale. That looks too big, so I probably need to go smaller. And the goal here, Hawks, is to create a pattern that looks like what you're trying to represent. Okay, so I've got this at 1. Maybe I think that looks okay. And there is my roof pattern on the front view. Now, what some people like to try and do when they're still in this orientation is they'll go, I want hatch there, I want hatch here, and I want hatch here. So the issue with that is you can see once I've kind of selected that, all those hatches are connected. So the big thing you want to try to avoid here is if you decide to leave your houses or your house in this orientation, just do each roof individually. That way you can individually control their orientation. You'll see in this one, I am going to go, oh, let's see here, didn't like that. So let's cancel all that, do a quick undo. Let's try this again. Hatch pattern here. I was trying to put this in at 180, so it's technically, there may be an up and down orientation on that pattern. Oh, that's a scale. No wonder I was having problems. All right, so there's the one, so angle should have been 180. So it would, in theory, turn it 180 degrees, and so I can hatch that pattern as necessary. Same thing on the side views. I'm probably going to have to rotate, let's say 90 degrees. And last but not least, last hatch pattern on this one, and that's looking okay. All right. Difference is if I decide to do this with the 4 views already arranged, what I should be able to do is come in, and I could, and I'm not suggesting you should, I would still come in and hatch these individually, because if you decide you need to move the views later, all the hatch will be connected. So it just means that you don't have to do the different rotation settings by having prearranged those views the way we want to see them on a B-size piece of paper. All right. And by the way, I'm not sure I mentioned it when I was doing this, but I just picked some generic distances. So you can see here I'm roughly 10 feet between views and approximately, if you go from top to bottom, what is that, 29 feet? I think I did like 30 here. Let's find out 20, sorry, 20. So I did 20 there. Again, just references, they're just random numbers that I thought would work, at least to get these arranged in what would end up being our final layout. Okay, so that was our shingles. Now I'm worried about the siding. So again, this is the stuff that's going to fit on the exterior walls of our house, and this is where we can run into some issues. So let's take a look here, and I'm going to pick something that looks like horizontal lines. Okay, horizontal lines for siding. So this ANSI 31 kind of makes me think of what I want to see. And this is probably where you're going to run into some issues here, okay? So you see right now, I'm going to go ahead and left click to place that. And right now, that hatch pattern looks solid. And you can also see it didn't get around some of my window, all of my windows actually. So let's just scale this up right now. And now you can start to see, again, those windows that it didn't cut around. And I've seen the software sometimes work for people, sometimes not. But you can see here, maybe I'm happy with the scale of those lines. I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees. So, well, apparently 135. There we go. Okay. Again, I'm doing math in my head. 45 didn't look right, but 90 degrees from there. So 45 plus 90, 135. So there's my hatch pattern, okay? And very much like before, I'm going to want to work my way around to the different views, arranging those patterns appropriately, okay? But the issue we are running into is that when I look to do this hatch pattern, some of these are being seen as boundaries. Some of these blocks are being seen as boundaries and others are not, okay? So I think the easiest place to show the technique that I tend to use when I run into problems like that is right here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get a layer that will never print, okay? And unless you've played with things, let's go look at our layers right here. Right now, in this file for me, my HVAC layer is set to never print. Okay, that's got a little red mark next to printer. The VPRT layer is set to never print. And in fact, my construction layer is set to print. I'm going to turn that to no print right now. That's the one I usually go to when I want something to maybe be visible, but never see it. Okay, so I just double left clicked on there. You can see the green check mark next to construction. So that is now my current layer. So the technique that I like to use, and in most cases, all these windows and doors are going to be rectangular, is I like to go and get on this construction layer, which will never print. I'm going to get a rectangle. Okay, you can certainly draw with individual lines, but I like to get a rectangle because it's a little quicker, and I don't want to say I'm lazy, but I like to work efficiently. I can just left click and draw a rectangle around the outside of a door or a window. Okay, and if I go back to my siding layer, and we now try to hatch this, notice how the window on the left, which has that construction layer rectangle around the window in this case, it's found a boundary. And on the window on the right, it doesn't see a boundary there. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and put that in there. So what you might have to do is use a layer there. Again, it's kind of it's a quick cheat. It's not necessarily the best option. There are some features within the hatch pattern control here where we could attempt to see why that's happening, but the easy solution, again, is because as long as you're tracing over, in this case, you can see that pink or whatever that magenta watermelon color line is for my window, you can see that that construction layer is right on top of that visible line, and that will never show up as a dashed item, and yet it allows us to create a border with which to not have the pattern go inside, okay? So if I very quickly just pretend that I'm going to hatch these other elevations very quickly, I, in theory, might be ready to print these elevations, okay? And in order to do so, I might want to set up my B size, okay? So what I'm going to do real quick here is I'm going to make a copy of this B size. And bring it on over here. Ooh, bring it on over here. And I'm going to rename this. Again, this is not something that you need to do. Final, how about just elevations? All right. And in this case, I want to go and find the elevations that I have created. They look something like that. I am certainly going to want to see what scale these will work out on my sheet as. So that was 1/16. That's going to be too small. Let's try 3/32. Maybe a little bit bigger. 1/8 inch. 1/8 inch looks pretty good. I don't think I'll be able to get to 3/16. Nope. So looks like the scale on this drawing is going to be 1/8 inch. So I should be able to come down here, change my information, be 1/8 inch equal to 1 foot. The date, you'd want to put the date of completion. This sheet is now going to be sheet A2. And as far as the title, it is not a floor plan. It's going to be main south house elevations. And that should all be uppercase. So let's fix that since I have caps lock on. And it's elevations plural as there is more than one. Okay. Now, I want to visually center these on the page. That looks pretty good to my eye. Last but not least is we could actually put labels underneath each view, identifying as this is the front, right side, back, left side, something like that. That can be done one of two ways. Let's talk about that. First one, I'm just going to grab text layer, and I'm going to get the text single line, and I'm just going to put text down here. So let's say, I don't know, right about there. Let's say I want my text to be, well, I'm going to go maybe a foot tall, 1 foot. Okay, and I want to go this direction, so this might be my front. Zoom in there so you can see that a little bit. That's a front elevation. And typically these labels will be roughly in the center of the view. And I could then control and copy and paste them where I want them to be. I would certainly like to have maybe their bottom edges aligned with one another. Okay, so you can see those aren't perfectly aligned. And maybe this is actually supposed to be the right side. And I can put in text like so. Get rid of that blue line. Let's take a look at our example. So there you can see the text is showing up. And if I was to go in here and change the scale, you'll see the scale changes with me. The other way that you could do text, okay, and again, I want to show you this because sometimes people don't think about what they're doing, is I can actually put text on our page here, okay? So here's where you'll notice the height of my text. If you look at the dynamic icon, it only says it's like 1/17 of an inch tall there. So I'm going to go maybe 1/2 inch. And I want to go that direction. And so now I'd be like my back view. Okay, so that text is 1/2 inch tall. And you can see it's much larger than the text that I made 1 inch tall, or 1 foot tall. The difference is, if you look, if I make that viewport active, you notice how the text I put in model space moves with the elevations, whereas this other text is out here actually, think of it as like a transparency. I've laid this transparency over the views here, and that's not moving with the text. So when you believe you've got elevations done and all set up on with a 4-view elevation like so, with a finished title block, I would print that on an A size to confirm, get some feedback, and if that's looking okay, there will be a summative elevation print coming due here in the near future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.